Now, it's my honor to introduce Andad Hamidi, who will be speaking on the topic Go Beyond Customer First, Zero Distance to Customer Delight. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Human beings are members of a whole in creation of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, the other members uneasy will remain. These are the words of Sadi Shirazi, a 13th century Persian poet, and humanist. His words are inscribed at the entrance of the United Nations. I wanted to begin this talk with his voice, because in recent weeks, we see the devastating loss of civilians' lives in both Israel and Iran. Before we begin this session, I invite you to join me in a brief moment of silence to honor those lives and to remember the human thread that connects us all together. Right. Right. So, customer first. We've heard it a million times. Oh, million and one. We've heard it a million times, right? Every company wants to do it. And most of them, honestly, they don't make it. Why? Because you can't put your customers first when your team are stuck behind layers of nonsense. Okay? And for us to achieve this customer delight, we need to think differently about customer delight, and that is why I'm here today. I'm going to talk to you about zero distance customer delight. This is not a best practice talk. This is hopefully to get us think about seriously, can we actually, instead of focusing customer first, can we reduce the distance between the people who can solve problems and people who have problems? Reduce it to zero. So, fun fact, people touch their phone about 2,000 times a day. You know that? In fact, I'm sure some of you have already unlocked your phone while I was speaking. That's okay. I do that all the time. So in around 2004, 2009, a Nokia engineer held a touch screen in his hand. It was a piece of magic. It was a prototype, a bit clunky, but it worked. They were very excited. They said, this is going to change everything. This is the future. They went to their leaders, and the leader said, customers want longer battery life. They want better keyboards and all that. And just like that, a wonderful idea died. So why did that happen? Because between those engineers and the customers, there were 6 or 7 layers of hierarchy. There was a lot of bureaucracy in forms of approvals, silos, handoffs, and those sort of things. That we call distance. And hopefully today, we're going to talk about how do we deal with that distance. Let's do something together. Can I, if you're able, can I ask everyone to stand up, please? Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. So, remain standing if you've ever been involved in any type of customer first initiative. It could be a new digital transformation, a new product, or a new mission statement. Remain standing. If not, you can sit down. Remain standing if that initiative leading to teams being able to deliver faster, better. They could get results immediately. They could talk to their customers directly. They could experiment what they want. Remain standing, this is a big one, if the initiative led into your teams being able to own their own strategy. They could decide what to build. They could own their, they could decide who to work with, who to hire, who to fire, which team to join. And they also could decide, based on the value they generate for the customer, they could get paid a portion of it, and they could decide how to distribute it amongst themselves. Are you sitting down? Okay, so you're not alone. Let me assure you, you're not alone, okay? I've seen this almost everywhere, and this is why we are here. Today we are here to close that gap, okay? So what happens is when we start with these customer first initiatives, sometimes it comes as a customer journey mapping, or a new digital projects, or a new UX or service design team. In reality, we're not removing the distance. All we are doing is we're adding more layers. I call it bureaucracy with nice branding. Okay? So let's see what we can do about it. And today I'm going to talk about zero distance that will flip it. Okay? So let's see why it does happen. Every organization, regardless whether you are private or government or non-governmental, they have some customers. You know, some people they're serving. Some people who need some value or they have a problem that they need to be solved. They also have people, they have employees, they have teams that know how to solve those problems, how to create value. And they are connected via a system, right? And that system in most organizations is hierarchy, layers of management, different departments, and a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of rules, processes, and things like that, okay? That does not reduce the distance. It's actually become a real barrier between the people who can solve problems and the people who have problems. So, and this comes in forms of long approval processes, or this is not my department, or things like that. Like, we are familiar with it. We've all been in these sort of meetings, you know, when someone has a great idea and that idea just get killed because it didn't go through the approval process. Okay, so, and let me tell you this. I think Matthew Skelton talked about economy of a scale. These structures, they're not bad structures. They were built for a different world. They were built for efficiency, for control, and for risk management. They were not built for responsiveness and flow. Okay? So, but the real cost is not just the efficiency. The real cost is also a human cost. Let me show you what I mean. Did you know that? Probably for this room is different. If you're all highly motivated people, that's why you're here. But if you leave this room, go outside, talk to someone who is working, or go back to work, right? Only 1 out of 4 people are actually engaged at work. Only 1. Meaning 75% of the people that come to work, they just clock in, clock out, turn off their potential, turn off their creativity. What do we mean by engagement? We mean being proactive, having emotional investment in what you do, and going the extra line, right? But it's not because people are lazy or they don't want to do this, because they get blocked. Simple as that. they get blocked by the bureaucracy. Instead of investing their time on solving problems, innovation, creating new value, they're just dealing with bureaucracy, with some dashboard, with some forms, just trying to navigate the bureaucracy. That's where the energy is spent. We've all been I have been sitting in so many meetings that some very, very smart people are asking for permission to do the right thing. Asking for permission to do the right thing. Can you believe it? So we saw this, and this number hasn't changed in the last 10 or 15 years. Funny enough, the numbers get better, the engagement now get better during COVID because people had more agency and autonomy and organizations had to trust them. Okay? But the number has remained consistently. We got into Agile because we wanted to change this. And to be honest with you, after 20 years of Agile, the number hasn't shifted. So that is why we got really frustrated. And we decided to start the Desirable Future. Desirable Future is an organization for us to be able to create human-centric, high-performing organizations. I have my two partners here, Ross and Dave. We started this company a few years ago, and a year and a half ago, yes. And that was our mission, creating human-centric, high-performing organizations, right? And we went around the world and we tried to find out who is doing this thing right. We find someone amazing in Canberra, Marilyn Emery, a co-founder of Open System Theory, 86 years old lady. We went and did a six-day masterclass with her to learn the theory of how do we create this. It's not just the best practice. There is some years of 50, 60 years of social science behind it. We also started to get more information about things like SEMCO style management. We are certified SEMCO management style. And we also run training with likes of Bursa, one of the most innovative in terms of management and organization design organization in the world, an example of how a self-managing organization should work. And we also become Rendon High, Australia and New Zealand Rendon High Research Center. I will talk about what does that mean. The research center is in collaboration with a Higher Management Institute. So, but part of that was we went around to find leaders who are actually doing this stuff. It's not just theory. And in our trip, we find a true leader who has turned the idea of zero distance to multi-billion-dollar business. Meet Jean Romain. This is 1984. I'm not joking, literally. And he was appointed as general manager of a failed state fridge maker in China. They were barely making 80 fridges a month. 20% of them were faulty, either not working or had some fault. And as a result of that, they were almost being bankrupted. Jean Romain came in, he went and talked to a bunch of customers, and one day he came to the factory, lined up around 80 fridges, took a sledgehammer, literally, and break the first one. Then gave the sledgehammer to the workers and said, smash them. From now on, this quality product will not leave this factory. That didn't change everything, but it started. It drew a line. It said we need to care about our work, the quality of our work. We need to care about each other. And around 2005, Haier has already, this is Haier, by the way, the company Haier. They already become a global appliance maker, not just making fridge anymore. They become a global appliance maker. They were building all type of appliances. They had around 80,000 employees by that time, around 12,000 managers. like any other most Western organization, or many other organizations of that size. And to be honest with you, they were very successful. But Jean Romain is a different person. He could have just said, hey, I turn higher from a failed state enterprise to a global, success, and yeah, we'll just get by, just continue to do what we do. He observed that many employees and that many managers just created distance. He didn't want it to just be a successful company. He wanted to be moving with the time. And he did something that no one really thought he will do. He smashed, this guy is like a smashing, smashed bureaucracy. He breaks down the entire 80,000 employee with 12,000 manager organization into 4,000 self-managing teams that act like startups. They are called micro enterprises in higher language, and they have full autonomy to do what they need to do to serve their customer, and they have zero distance to customer. Effectively, from a hierarchical organization to a network of highly autonomous micro enterprises or teams. You might be thinking, what happened to those 12,000 managers? I want to refer to the right name. I think, let me just find, yeah, Kate from Bayer. Yesterday, she was talking about anyone went to Kate from Bayer, talk from Bayer, okay? So you remember she was talking about a style of leadership? The managers were given choice to do either of one of these two things. Either join one of the micro enterprises as an entrepreneur, or you can become the architects and catalyst of the system that hold this thing together. There was no more layers of management, there was just leadership and the micro enterprises, but the managers then become leaders, then become the sort of stewards of the system. So imagine your teams having these kind of rights. I want to give you an example of one team who did this. When we went to China last year for the Zero Distance Award, which I will talk to later, we met Mr. Chi. Mr. Chi is a shop owner. He owns a service and sales office in a complex of about 10,000 people. One day, when one of his teams, or maybe it was himself, when they went and tried to install I think it was a washing machine, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that, install it in one house, dishwasher in a house, they couldn't fit it into the kitchen. And the customer was unhappy. And they said, well, look, you bought this size. But they didn't. Mr. Chi is part of obviously he is part of a micro enterprise. What he did was, he just said, okay, let me fix it for you. He went and hired a carpenter. He brought the carpenter in, they cut it, and he realized that there are many other customers that have the same problem. And as a result of that, they brought the carpenter in, they also trained others, and they bundled the service with selling the appliances. He didn't have to get HR approval, he didn't have to sign a form, he didn't have to submit a JIRA ticket, he didn't have to wait for a product owner to prioritize it for him. He just went in and hired someone, a carpenter, to actually help a customer. So this is zero distance. Customers and people who can solve the problem with zero distance between them. So, but how did this happen? Jean Romain has a management philosophy called Ren Non Hai. Ren Non Hai means employees, people. Ren means employees, people who can solve problems. Dan means user value. And Hai means aligning and connecting them. Okay, this was the management philosophy that led to that structure. And when someone asked, I think it was Forbes magazine, what's the strategy of hire with all these different 4,000 micro enterprises? He said, our strategy is to maximize human value. We want our employees' values to be aligned with our customer values and connected. That's our strategy. So let me give you another story. Mr. Gang is an engineer. He went to a vaccine center. Do you remember during COVID time, we had to wait in the line to get our jab? I mean, those of you who did. He went to a vaccine center, not necessarily during COVID time, a vaccine center, to get a jab for his kid. As he was observing the nurses, he saw that the nurse kept the fridge door open when taking the vaccine out of the fridge. He went and told them, aren't you worried that they get spoiled? The nurse said, don't you see the line? These vaccines are really hard to reach. I can't find them. And if I just keep opening and closing and reaching, the line will be 3 times longer. He could have just ignored it, had nothing to do with him at that point of time. He went back to his team and said, right, guys, this is the problem. How are we going to solve it? So the team came together and they designed a new fridge, which have compartments. They took the prototype to the nurse and say, do you want this? He said, yes, I want it. I want it right now. Give it to me. Say, that's okay. We will make it for you. They went in, they make the fridge. And as they were talking to the nurse and observing, they realized there are other problems. There is administration, reporting, inventory management, scheduling, and all that jazz. So not only they actually fixed this, they also work with other teams to equip this with some IoT equipments, connecting to inventory management system. They even connected to scheduling system where people can just go on WeChat and schedule their appointments. Not only that, they realized that these vaccine centers are very child unfriendly. And they went and talked to a company who was doing the internal decoration and said, next time we go in, can you please come with us and redecorate, make it more child friendly? And we will bundle the service together. They're actually going even beyond their company. You know, that car decorating company is not related to hire, okay? But collectively, they're providing high value to the customers. By the way, after this, they become not just this, there were other things, but there is now Hire Biotech that owns one of these. This is called Uvaccine Network. They also in Africa and other places. The spoilage dropped by 87% and 45 million children were protected by this new technology. So this team and that entire group, then they IPO'd out of Hire, created Hire Biomedical, which is now about, I think, $450 million revenue and $2 billion cap value, okay? IPO'd out of Hire. One moment, one person, zero distance, okay? So, how does this happen? When we talk about Brendan High, we have to make it somehow happen, right? So the micro enterprises have 3 rights in Hire. They have the right to strategy, deciding what to build, who to build it for, how to build it. They can also decide who their team is, who needs to join the team, who get fired, hired, the team themselves decide. Very similar to Bursa. They also have the right to reward their income. They say, well, we get a part of compensation as the value we create for the customers, and we can decide how to distribute it among ourselves. Okay? So these are the rights that they have. And they are paid by the customer. That is what creates accountability. Okay? They're not just a cost center somewhere. They're paid by the customer. Actually, let me just go back. Anyone remember Professor Sharon Parker's keynote? What was the acronym she used? It can't get smarter than this, right? So, or maybe it can. If you ask Jean Romain, he would say probably it can. So, But remember, the 4,000 MEs, they are not all customer facing, okay? About 300 of them customer facing. They are connected to smaller MEs that provide other services. Let's say in the example of a fridge, one team is making the fridge, another team provide the IoT technology, another team write the software. And what they do is they actually, let's say the team who provide IoT, they are the provider, and the ME team that is experienced team, they are their customers. So not all of them directly connected to customers. They call them in hire, they call them users. The reason they call them users is they say customer have this perception that you just sell something and there's a once-off transaction, right? But users means you're always using our ecosystem. You become a lifetime user of our ecosystem. That's why they use users, not like old technology folks that call everyone a user. So effectively, these micro enterprises, they help each other out and they record their contract into smart contracts using blockchain, and they create an ecosystem. Obviously, one team of 15 people cannot make that fridge, right? So, and this is the key. If you want to take a picture, this is one of the important ones. All of the MEs are paid by the customer, not in a budget, not in a line item, not a cost center, not approval. Their bonus is also not identified by the manager. I just went through some performance review, okay? Not by their managers or leaders. They're paid by the customer. If the service they're providing sell, they get revenue. If it doesn't, they have to improve or they need to find another problem to solve. So that's, I think, one of the key elements of making it work. Also, how they can do it at a scale, because they replace, obviously they replace hierarchy with network of self-managing team, and they also replace bureaucracy with an enabling platform. I will talk to that in a minute. Matthew Skelton was talking about infrastructure for empowerment. That's infrastructure for empowerment. They have a platform, both manufacturing and digital platform, that when the customer pay, that fridge team, the money automatically get distributed between everyone that was part of the value chain. You don't need to optimize your value stream map to do that. The market will regulate itself. So what's Hire doing today? They are not a appliance maker anymore. They are an ecosystem organization. They are serving about $1 billion households now, and their revenue is 60 billion Australian dollar. They are into smart industrial cities. They are into IoT devices. They are into medical devices, etc. We went and met some of those folks. They're making equipments that, in order to come up with clinical protocols, there was no Western clinical protocol. They had to make it themselves. Oh, just so make sure that this is me, okay? So this guy is my hero, and this is the only photo I have. We went to China to meet with him, and this is the only photo I had with him, like that. So this is not just Hire. We write a white paper. You can find it on our website. We met with companies, 15 companies, from aerospace to medical to manufacturing to software, in 13 different countries, from Brazil to India to China to Spain to Australia. Chorus Australia is one of them, and Everest Engineering, and 8 different industries. So it's not just Hire. What next? When tomorrow you went back to work, not next quarter, this week, if you're a product owner, instead of running a sprint review, take your team, have a coffee with your customer. Coffee first, business next is something that Bootstrap guys use a lot. Human connection first. If you're a leader, give your team a 10,000, 20,000, 5,000, whatever you can afford, experimentation budget. Tell them that in 7 days, release something into production with this money. If you are a senior leader, an executive, in the next big room planning, give one team for 90 days only the 3 rights. It's a small experiment. It's not just adding another layers of bureaucracy. It is a system redesign, a miniature system redesign. It's a safe to fail experiment. Okay? Now, I want to bring it back home. So, we talked about the thing that create distance, the hierarchy and bloated bureaucracy. It doesn't change. You still need customers, people who do the work, and you need a system to connect. But the difference is, connect your teams, the problem solvers, to people who have problem, value creators to people who need value. Replace bureaucracy with an enabling management system and platform. Who does the, look, you still need to track things, you need to track money, you need dashboard, but you don't need bureaucracy to do that. You can create infrastructure for empowerment, okay? And it is quite possible, right? You have a choice. This photo is, I don't know how many of you know Craig Brown from Everest Engineering. He's a Melbourne guy, yes. So we helped Craig to nominate for Zero Distance Award. They won a nomination in China last year. Zero Distance Award, you have people like Gary Hamel, Jean Romain, and others in there. And this is the most prestigious award for people who do any type of innovation in their management. If you've done any of these things, don't have to do all of it. If you know someone who has done it, come talk to us. We want to put more Aussies in the board stage. These guys stood next to likes of Burzag, Bosch, GE Appliances. By the way, GE Appliances and Fisher & Paykel is now owned by Haier. And get this award. If you're thinking about these possibilities and you're looking for some guidance, we're here to help you. We are Desirable Futures, and let's make it happen together.